Shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome to this video. I'm going to be discussing in this video Marcion and Gnosticism. And then there'll be a lead into part 2, which will be about the divine spark. So yeah, I have been doing research and thinking about things. And there's one particular thing which I could do really a separate video, but I think I want to start with this fact, okay? In the King James Bible, whenever you see the name Lord written in capital letters, that means that the translators decided to put that word in for whenever the Tetragrammaton was used. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Tetragrammaton is the most sacred name of the God of Israel. So there is some debate on how it's pronounced because it's difficult to know what the vowels were. But we know it's YHWH. So most frequently we pronounce it Yahweh. So wherever that is put, the original name is Yahweh, the sacred name of the Creator, our Creator, the Creator of everyone, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. So that name's there. So this is going to be just a little prelude to what I'm going to go into at Marcion. Now that name is important. It's a very sacred name. And it links in, Jesus. If you've been following my videos, you know that I don't refer to him as Jesus. Personally, I refer to him as Yeshua or Yehoshua. Now, the reason for that is that that's his name in Hebrew. That's what he would have been called by Mary. That's what he would have been called of by his apostles. That was the name that he was called by. Now, that isn't the only reason I use that name, but it does also help us remember that he was incarnated into a Jewish Hebrew lineage, living in that culture, okay? Because we forget that. So, but also the other reason why the name Yehoshua is so much more powerful is because of the meaning. Because it means Yahweh saves. You see? So Yehoshua is the salvation of Yahweh. He's the one that Yahweh sent to give his people salvation and to bring the whole world to him. So that is the importance, and that is lost when we use the name Jesus. When we use the name Jesus, which is a morphing, a transliteration of the name, we don't have the meaning. Jesus doesn't mean anything. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as my knowledge goes, Jesus does not mean anything. It's his original name in the language of his people, Israel, that it means something. So that's the prelude. So Marcion, if you haven't heard of him, you need to hear of him, because this relates so much to what has happened in the church today. It was a heresy. This is early church. This is early church. So this is about 144 AD. This is before there was even a Catholic church. Like in what I've read, the church head was still from Jerusalem, the leading church. There was one in Rome, but it was not considered the center of Christianity or the center of Messianic faith. It was still in Jerusalem because that's where it started. That's where on Pentecost and Shavuot it started. So I'm going to try and focus because I want this to be a nice, not too long video that has the facts that can inform you of what happened. So Marcion, apparently he was a shipbuilder, okay? and he decided he obviously wasn't just this because he had read scripture, the Hebrew Bible, the Gospels he had studied. Now, what it says he faced with himself was that he found the God of the Old Testament to be too different from the God of the New Testament. That he couldn't seem to align them both, or he didn't want to align them both, really. That's probably the truth, because at the time they had. So what he did is he rejected the Hebrew Bible, and he rejected the God of Israel. And he said that the God that sent Jesus, Yeshua, was different from the God of Judaism. Doesn't that sound reminiscent? If I'm speaking here to my Christian brethren, doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? Right. Okay, so he declared in his wisdom, right, that Christianity was in complete discontinuity with Judaism, that the two didn't have any link, that he entirely opposed the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, and said that Christianity is not linked. We're going to sever the link between the Messianic faith and Judaism. And we're going to say that there are two different gods. The God of the Hebrew Bible, the God that gave the promises to Abraham, the God that created the world, the God of David, the God of Elijah, the God of Daniel, the God of Jeremiah, the God of Isaiah, is not God. The Father of Jesus, this non-Jewish person, is a different, because he's good, the good Father of Jesus. But this God of the Old Testament is this vengeful God. So we're going to say, no, we're gonna put that in the bin, and we're going to say that this is how it is. Now, this received a huge backlash from the Orthodox Church, right? So that they condemned him. That's why it's known as a heresy, because the church collectively, the body of the congregation came together and said that we denounce what he's teaching. We do not agree with it, and we want it to stop. Now, it's interesting because I was recently studying with some brothers and sisters the parable of the tares among the wheat. And one of the things is that the people had to be asleep when the adversary came and put the tares amongst the wheat. Now, at this time, the people weren't asleep. The men and the women of Elohim were awake, and they were like, no, you are not bringing that in. We reject that. Okay? So it didn't happen at this time. But when I read this is what I see in the church today. This is what I see in the church today. This discontinuation. The God of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, that's gone, that's done away with, the law is no longer relevant, the Hebrew is no longer relevant. It's all just now like Christian. About Christ, God is so good, and there's no wrath, and everyone can do what they want. I'm just gonna read you a couple of things from articles that I've read about Marcion, because I want to give you direct hands, not just what I remember. Right, so I'm going to read some of this. This is an article about Marcionism. Yeah, basically, Marcion wrote this book known as Antithesis. This isn't, a lot of it isn't extant today, but we have some of it from other sources that have written about his work. For fragments of it. So Marcion's primary antithesis involved faith and law. On one hand, there was the law given Moses, which the Apostolic 12 endorsed in Matthew's Gospel. He's even admitting the disciples were endorsing the law, right? Which is why in his Bible, he rejected not only the Hebrew Bible, he rejected the Gospel of Matthew, he rejected the Gospel of Mark, and he rejected the Gospel of John. He only accepted the Gospel of Luke, and even then he took some bits out, and he only accepted 10 of Paul's writings. That was his Bible, because nothing else fit his theology, his twisted theology. Right, so I'll continue. And then so you've got the apostles endorsing the law. And he's saying, on the other hand, there was the faith alone doctrine of Paul. So to solve this antithesis, Marcion invented the idea that Christ had two personages. Now, if you've been following this channel, you'll know that I did a video about the true Christ, saying what Paul said in Corinthians about being taught another Jesus. Now, I said there are no more than one. There is only one Jesus. So it's not saying like, literally, it's saying in your thinking, in what you think you'll believe in a different Jesus. Now, he is quite blatantly declaring there's another Jesus than the one we were taught, than the one that the church has accepted, that the Messianic community believed in. They're wrong. Jesus is actually like this, and it goes on. So he had two personages, the one of the 12 and the one presented by Paul. Now, I just want to say, I won't go into it, but there is so much misunderstanding about Paul's writings. Everything unites. Paul was in agreement with the 12 apostles. There was no line down the middle, this is what Paul thinks, this is what the disciples think. It's just not the way it is. I can prove that more in a different video. Okay. So, the Jesus of the 12 represented the creator God of the Old Testament, Yahweh. Right? But the Jesus of Paul represented the good God, or the Father of the New Testament. So this is actually from his book, The Antithesis, which was written in 144 AD. This is early, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, this is early. You know, in Ecclesiastes, it says there is nothing new under the sun. What has been is what will be. This is why we look back at history, we can learn from it, because today, what we see, there is nothing new under the sun. What is being done today has been done in the past. And this is what this is. Okay, so I will read. This is from it. They've inserted some things in brackets to make it more clearer. So, this is him speaking. Marcion's writings. The Jewish Christ of Matthew was designated by the Creator, i.e. the God of the Old Testament, solely to restore the Jewish people from the diaspora. But our Christ was commissioned by the good God of the New Testament to liberate all mankind. The good God of Paul's Jesus is good towards all men. The Creator, however, promises salvation only to those who are obedient to him, i.e. legalism. The good God redeems those who believe in him, but he does not judge those who are disobedient to him. The Creator, however, redeems his faithful and judges and punishes the sinners. Do I need to read any more? It's so clear. But I'll continue because I'm going to bring this to the right root or the cause of the problem. The Christ of the Creator God promises to the Jews the restoration of their former condition by return of their land, and after death, a refuge in Abraham's bosom. Our Christ will establish the kingdom of God, an eternal heavenly possession. And that's that. I mean, do I need to say anything, my friends? Do I really need to expound on this? What do we see today? You don't need to do anything. You just need to believe and you'll be saved. He doesn't judge you. No man should judge you. You can do whatever you want and still have salvation. He doesn't punish sin anymore. That's the God of the Old Testament. He doesn't judge sinners anymore. These are lies. These are lies. And I'm sure many of my Christian brethren see that, but you need to take it a step further and take it to the law. Take it to the Hebrews, take it to Yahweh, to Joshua. You need to realize this has all been a gradual falling away, a gradual disintegration, destroying it gradually, like acid eating away at the truth, until we have this empty shell that we have today. And we not only need to go back to being a half a shell or half a nut, we need to go back to the whole of it. The whole of it as it was in the days of the disciples, before this started. Right, so I will continue. And then we can kind of go over this, my friends. Right. So Marcion was a Gnostic as well. Right? He denied that Yeshua had a physical body. Okay, do you understand what I mean? Like, when we know that Yeshua was incarnated into flesh, that he took on flesh, right? He never lost his divinity, but he took on flesh. And he literally had a body, and he literally died on that cross. And he literally came back into that body and was resurrected. That is just obvious if you read the Gospels fully, and you understand that Thomas put his hands. He said, does a spirit have flesh and blood? He put his hands in the marks, in the scars. He had flesh and blood and bones. Otherwise the sacrifice couldn't have been complete that he made. And it was. But, okay, Marcion denied that Yeshua had a body when he came and gave his life on the cross. He said that he was just in spirit. Now this we can debate, and as obvious as I think it is, I'm sure there's people that will like to pick holes and say different things. But with this is one of those things that ends the argument, right? So Marcion denied that Yeshua had a physical body. 1 John 4:3. This is John, the disciple, the beloved disciple of Yeshua. Said, and every spirit that confesseth not that Yehoshua Messiah is come in the flesh is not of God. And not only is it not of God, it says, and that is the spirit of the Antichrist, whereof you have heard that it should come, and even now it is already in the world. So every spirit that confesses not, that denies that Yeshua came in the flesh, is not of God. So Marcion was not of God. They did a good job in excommunicating him and declaring that what he was speaking was a heresy. But it doesn't just go to that. That is like I said, the conversation stopper, the arguer stopper. But this goes a lot further. This goes a lot into why we have disconnected from the Hebrew roots of our faith. Right. So this is just a little bit about Gnosticism, okay? So Gnosticism was a body of ideas centered around gnosis, or some kind of special spiritual knowledge. Okay. And it goes through a few of the ideas that were very, didn't like materialism, okay? Which is fine. But this is one of their key disagreements with the Orthodox, not Catholic, the Orthodox Church. The supreme deity could not be the same as the Creator. As such, the God of the Old Testament was considered evil. Are you seeing a theme here? Are you seeing a theme here? Throwing in the bin of the Old Testament. Denial of our Creator. This complete cut off. And be like, nothing ever happened before Yeshua came, not even in the flesh, they believe. I mean, like, how far can you go before you have nothing? This is what they eat away. They eat away at the truth until it's so weak that it has no power. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. That's what it is, in a nutshell. In a nutshell. Yeah. So I'm going to carry on because I need to go through this. But yeah, this is particularly the bit I wanted to read to you. And just think about how things are today. How much of this is resonating with you at the state of the church today, to what you're being taught by your pastors today. And this was a heresy considered at that time. Not just the fact that they said Yeshua didn't come in the flesh. The whole thing that they were speaking, that he was teaching, was considered heresy of the worst type. Okay. It says this: if the Gnostics had taken over Christianity, the Jesus movement would have lost its connection to Judaism and would have been now considered a spiritual philosophy, such as Buddhism or other Eastern religions. Well, I'm sorry, we have lost, the church has lost its link to Judaism, and it's more and more becoming a philosophical, a spiritual philosophy. Do good to each other, have some Christian morals, say Jesus is Lord, and you're good. You don't really even necessarily have to believe the far as that he came in the flesh and that he actually rose from the dead. And let's take it to even more now, that we're just going to say he was a good teacher of morals. We should follow his example and live as he lived. And then it will be like this presidential candidate in America, Christ consciousness. He came to show us the way to become enlightened, the way to realize that we're actually all sons of God, that we're actually channeling God. You see how it starts. Here's the truth. And you eat away at it. You eat away at it till it's now just lies. Till there's now no virtue and nothing good in it. And that's what I see happening. That is what I see happening. And it's very sad. But the main thing is that we have lost our roots. You see, what John was doing in that quote that I read you, where he was saying that this is not from God, if they say that Yeshua didn't come in the flesh. In John's time, now John saw Yeshua in the flesh, right? Which is partly why he knew this so strongly, and he could say to you, look, if they say that, they're not true, they're not speaking truth, they're speaking lies, they're Antichrist. So this was as early as you could get. And even then, this was already starting. Nothing that someone says do they have to say unless the opposite is being said. Gnosticism had already started while the disciples were alive. And this is why he was saying this apology against Gnosticism, saying it is heresy, it is wrong. Even in the New Testament, we have the first, one of the first, there might be another one in there, I think, but one of the first declarations, this is heresy, basically. This is not to be accepted within our congregations, within our assemblies. And there was another one Paul said, I think, but that's a different subject. But so yeah, this is what it is, brothers and sisters. This is what you have to look at. The Marcion heresy. You're declaring that Yahweh was a false deity, or that at best he was a lower deity, and the God, the Father of Jesus, was the real deity. I mean, this stuff is madness, really. It's not even logical. And I don't think I have to, because if you read your Bible, you will know the crazy amount of links between the Old and New Testament. Like I was just reading about, in Luke, where he leaves the 99 to find the one sheep. That's in Ezekiel 30, talking about the shepherd and his sheep. And it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel talking about his sheep. Because you see, Yeshua is part of the God of Israel. He's part of Elohim. They understood this. They may have lost this knowledge over time because there's traditions, but they understood. In Genesis, it said, let us make man in his image. In 1 John, it says about the Creator, Abba, Father, and there's the word there, the Son, and the Father is creating through the Son. They're creating together. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel is Yahshua, and is Abba, the Father, Yahweh. You cannot rip them apart. You cannot say here is Jesus and here is Yahweh. You cannot say here is Christianity and here is Judaism. But that is what they have done. And they've not only done that, they've made hatred, they've made animosity, and they've made persecution against the chosen people, or the people that have taken on the religion of the chosen people. Most of the famous Christians were anti-Semitic. I know Luther, I used to think it was great what he did. And in some ways that the Reformation that happened helped a lot for us to get the truth from the Word. But he wrote stuff against the homilies against the Jews, that we should burn their houses down. He was professing to follow Yeshua, the King of the Jews, the one who said to love your enemies, even if they are your enemies, to forgive them. And he was this hatred. It's not right, brethren. It's not right. that anyone should hate. If you follow Yeshua, Jesus, whatever names you use, if you follow him, you must not be filled with hate. That is like the first thing you should realize, is that you should love. You should be filled with love and forgiveness. So we need, and the reason why the Reformation didn't work, that we're still stuck with the traditions of men, that we're still stuck with infiltration of idolatry in the church, that we still haven't got the power of the Ruach Kodesh in the church, that we aren't getting breakthrough, we aren't getting visions of breakthrough. I remember once in the old books talking about Samuel, the actual word, it says there was no open vision in the King James, but it looks at the Hebrew and it says there was no breakthrough vision. There had been obviously types of visions or whatever, but there was no breakthrough vision. But Samuel he heard from the Lord, he had a breakthrough vision. We're not receiving breakthrough. The church is weak. The church is anemic. It is falling apart. It is full of division and disunity and discord and drunkenness and sin and idolatry. And then we wonder why it's not being the light of the world. Why churches are becoming emptier by the day, why people aren't going to church, why people are turning to atheism, turning to New Age spirituality, because there's nothing in it. It's dead. And I'm sorry if this is offending you. I'm sorry if the truth hurts. But it is. The church has become an empty shell. If you took Paul today and you time hopped him into a church today, he would be like, what is this? What is this? He would have some serious rebukings to give. And that is why it couldn't succeed then. But it has over time. And Paul even knew this. He prophesied the great falling away that would happen. But this is it. This is it. Let's repair the breach. Let's undo that severing that was done by Antichrist followers like Marcion. This is in John's words. This is not mine. He was an Antichrist. Marcion, every Gnostic, was an Antichrist. And there are many of them that throughout the church history have eaten away at the truth until we reach this point. We need to restore and be repairers of the breach, repairers of that there's like a cut. We need to heal that. We need to bring the two back together. We need to get the fullness of the understanding back. We need to return to our Creator. We need to return to our gods, the gods we have rejected. We think we have accepted him, but we have rejected him. We have rejected his words that he spoke through his prophets, through his disciples. We have rejected it, and we have followed heresy. May God forgive us. May God forgive us and turn his people back to him. Amen.